All right, so today is the 22nd, it's on Wednesday, and today's document in Canvas is the Intro to Probability and Statistics Wednesday and Thursday, Monday and Tuesday. In the last video we did, in the last call, we did Monday and Tuesdays. Today we're doing Wednesdays and Thursdays, and then Friday is again. If you need us to extend anything or reopen stuff, or you have questions, or you still want to work on this kind of stuff, then let us know. And that's kind of like a free day-ish thing. The next week we're actually going to get into some sort of cool stuff with probability and statistics. I think I'm going to try to adjust, make sure it's not just all worksheets next week, something a little more critically thinking, but we'll see. So it is important to know a couple things about probability and statistics before we move on. Let me actually move this way. I thought I had it all set up, but it's going to be better. Yeah, it's better for me. Okay. So what we're looking at today is we're adding two new ideas to our toolbox, mean and median. You've probably talked about these before, mean, median, mode. It came up in middle school, and it's going to keep coming up for the rest of the school year. So make sure we're all right with it. If we're not, it's okay. We just got to get there. So let me go ahead and get it cleared. All right. So if you open the document, your worksheet should look something like this. And we're going to get started with that. So if you're new to the Zoom call, iPhone, I think it's Andrew, just switch over to a new tab. You can listen to this, kind of click back and forth. If you have your Chromebook in front of you, you can be on the Zoom call on your phone, and Chromebook has the assignment for today open. Probably helpful, handy. First, I want to talk about some stuff real quick. Measures of center. The idea of a measure of center is if you're looking at a set of numbers, a bunch of data, we need to figure out what's average. Now, average is not really a good word because it kind of describes, it does describe a couple of different things, and those different things are called measures of center. Okay, so you can have an average that's not just like what we typically think of as an average. We just add them up and divide them. That's actually the mean. So we're going to use a little bit more specific vocabulary with mean and median because measures of center are looking for the average. And sometimes we're going to learn when you're going to use different kinds of measures of center to actually measure the average or get a good estimate right about there. So as you can see, we have two on this document here. It has the definitions in front of you. It says mean is the average of the values in a set of data. To calculate it, you divide the sum by the total number of data values. Sum, you add them all up, and then you divide it by the total number. So if we have 20 numbers in our list, we add up all 20 numbers and divide them by 20. That's how we calculate grades. Like your 4th 9 weeks grade, everybody knows it's you take the first, or your final grade, sorry, you take the first, second, third, and fourth, divide them up by 4. In this case, it's first, second, and third, divide them up by 3, and that'll be your final grade. So the final grades in school is a good example of a mean. And that's actually probably some calculations you've done before to figure out what do I need to make in this class to get in this quarter to make it whatever in the class. I know we've done that, sat you down and done that before. So the median is the middle value when the elements are ordered from least to greatest. So back on Monday, we actually used the median as part of our 5-number spread that we were looking for. We used the median to find like that middle line in the box plot, if we remember that. We found, the lowest number, the median, and then, or the middle number, what we called it then, and then we found the max number, first, second quartile, or first and third quartile, but The median specifically is like the middle value. So if you miss that one, you'll still be able to catch up, but I would go back and watch that so you can do Monday and Tuesday's work. So to calculate the median, you got to put them in order, just like we did Monday, and then find the middle number, the exact middle number. Now, if there are two middle numbers, you take the average, not the average, the mean, you take the mean of those two numbers. So you add them up and divide by 2. Again, I think this will all make sense once you see it in practice a couple times. So I'm just going to jump right in and do a couple of examples, and we'll work from there. So the first example is using the data set above, and that data set is 16, 22, 20, 17, 19, 19, 18, 21, I think that's right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay. So it shows the ages of 15 camp counselors at this camp, Camp Sparrow. And what it wants us to do is find the mean. It wants us to find the median. Okay. So to find the mean, you're actually just going to add them up and divide by the total number of numbers, total number of data values in the list. So total number of counselors, in this case it's 15. So we take all of that and then add it up. So if we took 16 plus 22 plus 20, plus 18 plus 1, we add all those together, divide it all by 15, because 15 is the number of numbers in the list. Okay, so the number, Monday we use that line of people analogy. It's the number of people in a line. Okay, so we have 15 people in the line. These are our people. Then we're going to add up the numbers, add up their values, and divide it by the total number. All right, and I think, that actually comes out to be about, let me do this in blue. My blue marker is about 19.2. Okay, and for these, 1/10 is fine for now. There's really no reason to go anymore. I wouldn't use the whole number. I would use 1/10, so 1 decimal place. Okay. That's how you find the mean. Again, this is something that you've probably seen as average. You just take the average, add them up, and divide it by the number of numbers you added. Okay. So the median is a little bit different, but we've seen it Monday, and what you need to do first is you need to order them least to greatest. Okay, so let's do that now. Okay, so now the numbers are ordered least to greatest, and you can do this 2 ways. If you don't have to use the data set anymore, what you can do actually is what I used to do when I first learned this. So I would cross out, to find the middle, I would cross out from each end 1 at a time. So I would go first and last, I would cross out that. Okay, and again, we're trying to narrow it down until we get to the middle. So you can take 1 from the other side, you gotta take 1 from that side. And that leaves us with one number, and that's 19. You could count. Monday we counted. We said there's 15, so half of it is going to be around 7. So we would, count 7 this way and count 7 backwards, and that would give us the same place if we counted 7. So count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you count the other way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That middle number there is still 19. Either way, but the crossing it out, as long as there's not like 100 numbers in the list, crossing it out makes it simple. So that's how you do the first problem. And the second problem introduces a new term called an outlier. So there, I guess he's leaving. Okay. So some data sets contain outliers. An outlier is a data point that is either greater or far less than the rest of the data points. Okay. So let's say you're typically on your homework. You're typically pretty good about doing all your homework. You get 80s, 90s, whatever, hundreds, and then one day you just don't do it, so you get a 0. All right? That 0 would be an outlier. It's not normal. What if normally on quarantine, like when we're out doing all this, you wake up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day? That's normal for you. And just today, you decided to wake up at 9:30 so you can come to the Zoom call this morning. This would be an outlier, okay? So this is something abnormal. It's not, it's a number that's far different than the rest of the numbers in its set, okay? So this next problem, this next example is going to use outliers. Again, this is going to go on YouTube. So if you want to, or if you will, please, fill in the first 2 sheets of basically notes, and then we'll move on to, there's 2 pages of example problems. So the second example, there's not nearly as numbers. This is a homework example. So we have 80, 95, 0, 90, 95, 80, 85. I'm just going to put it over here with a 90. Okay, we have that list of numbers. It has a couple things, A, B, C, and D, E, 5-part problem here. But first, let's talk about the outlier. So look at these list of numbers, 90, 80, 95, 0, 90, 95, 80, 85. There should be one number in there that's just not normal. It's a little abnormal. It's out of place, it seems. An outlier always, it's obvious when it's out of place, okay? So in this case, our outlier is going to be 0, because 0 is out of place here. This kid, Justin is his name. He makes decent grades, pretty good grades on everything, but just got a 0 on 1. It's not normal for him, so that would be our outlier. Okay. So the outlier in this case would be 0. All right, that was part A. Now, part B is going to have you compare 2 things. Part B and C are going to have you compare 2 things. Give myself some room here. So part B is going to have you find the mean, but there's like a left and a right side of that. You see on the left side there, it says without the outlier, and then it has with the outlier. This is actually a cool example because if you're ever wondering, what's this 0 going to do to my grade? This is a good example of what a 0 does to a grade in a class. So the mean without the outlier. Okay, so same process as before, but so what we have to do is find 90 plus 80 plus 95 plus 90 plus 95 plus 80 plus 85, all divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's without, let me write that there. Without the outlier. So without the outlier, you just take the 0 out and then continue like normal. Okay, and so that's actually going to be equal to, I did the math already, 87.89, sorry, 87.9. Okay, so without the 0, he's got an 87.9 average. It's pretty good. But with the outlier, let me give myself a little more room here. It's the same process. So 90 plus 80 plus 95 plus 90 plus 95 plus 80 plus 85 plus 0. And now we don't have 7 numbers in here, we have 8 numbers in here. Okay, and that's actually going to be equal to 76.9. That's crazy. Okay, so we have eight grades in our grade book at the beginning of the year, or beginning of every 9 weeks when we only have like 8 grades in. Maybe this is midterms, right? So maybe this is report cards. We're 4.5 weeks in. We only have 8 grades, and you made a 80 and 90 and 95 and 90, 95, 80, 85 on the first 7. Your average is looking at like an 87.9. You're looking happy. And then, you know, it's report card time. You forget about one homework. That drops your average all the way down. Okay, so it's important to stay on top of everything because this is the impact a grade will have on a mean, which is how we calculate grades. Okay, so that's like the with and without for B. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start erasing. Again, this will be on YouTube in like 30 minutes after the lesson. So if you need to go back, no problem. So let's do C. So that's, now we're looking for the median. Okay, so this is median. And so with and without the outlier, first thing we got to do, we got to list it in order. So 0, 80, 80, 85, 90, 90, 95, I think it's 95, 95, yeah. Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, yeah, okay. So this is, let's do without the outlier first, so we just erase that. But the process is still the same, okay? So what you can do, we can just count. So we have 7, and count in the middle, which should be 3.5, 4. So 1, 2, 3, and count backwards. 1, 2, 3. We still land on 90. So if you can kind of tell, that's our halfway point. If it helps, you can also just cross things out. So without the outlier, we'll go 1, 1, and cross out 2 and 2. Cross out 3 and 3, leaves us with 90. So that gives me 90. Let's do with. So the list of numbers is going to be a little different. You can start with 0. Okay, but the process is still going to be exactly the same. So we're going to start with 0, 95. It's not supposed to go 0, 95, 80, cross out 1, cross out 1. That leaves us with 2. Remember here, if you're left with 2, we don't take both numbers. Instead, we take the mean. So you take 85, you add it to 90, divide it by 2. Let's find that number directly in the middle there, and that leaves us with 87.5. So width is 87.5. So with the 0, even the median is lower, which is normal sometimes. So even in the median, it's still going to be a little bit lower than without. So 0 does make a big difference here. Okay. Let's see here. Part D says describe how the presence of the outlier affected the mean and the median. I already kind of talked about this a little bit, but One word we're looking for here is it lowered the mean and the median, but specifically it skewed it. It skewed the data set, and it actually skewed it right. So if you can imagine back on Monday when we had those little graphs, see if there's any room down here. Remember that thing from Monday? What we actually did was we took our data set and we actually lowered it, right? So if it lowers, like we're squeezing the water balloon on the right side, which means it's going to skew it right. So we're squeezing it on the right side, so it's skewing it right. It's a little weird because the higher part's on the left side, but remember, we're going to have to flip those. It's one of those things we got to learn. Skewed it to the right. All right, so E says which measure of center, mean, or median best describes the data set. It's going to be median, actually, because, again, you need the outlier present to talk about the whole data set. So this is with the outlier, looking at 76.9 or 87.5. If you look at the grades, most of them, besides the outlier, which is why it's an outlier, are closer to 87.5 than 76.8, so, or 0.9. So the median there is going to describe it a little better. And actually, at the top of the next sheet, kind of talks about something we can kind of remember or know. And that's an outlier can affect which measure of center best describes the data set. In general, when it contains an outlier, you're going to want to use the median. But if so stumbled over myself there. If it contains an outlier, the median is a better measure of center than the mean. Okay, so it kind of shows that you're going to include the 0, but it's a little bit the way you're including it is a little bit different, and it doesn't have as much weight on the actual outcome than the median. Okay, so I think I can get through 2 examples. Yeah, I should definitely be able to get through 2 examples. And then it should be about a 45-minute lesson, and then I'll post it. So again, always go back. It'll be posted. And the YouTube channel is Collins Tillman Math Class. So if you haven't gotten to it, you can get to it. You can just search it. You don't even have to. You can just search that. Okay. So the rest of the worksheet is just going to be mean and median. It doesn't actually throw any more curveballs at you. It's just going to be mean and median for the rest of the sheet. With a couple different examples. So example 3 says 2 classes held contests to see who could memorize the greatest number of digits in the number pi. 8 students from each class competed. Below, you will find the total number of digits recalled by each of the competitors in each class. Mr. Parker's class and Mrs. Smith's class. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and write down the numbers so we can work with them. So Mr. Parker's class had a kid do 30, 12, 14, 10, 15, 14, 14, and 12. Okay? And Mrs. Smith had 14, 13, 15, 11, 12, 13, 14, 12. Okay. 8 students in each class, and that's the number of digits they memorized in pi, which is an infinitely long number. So first, part A says, which measure of center, mean, or median is best to use to compare the 2 data sets? Explain. Okay, so let's see here. Let's look at those 2 data sets. And just a second ago, I mentioned something that's a tell-all for when we should use either, and when we should use the median, and when we should use the mean. So we need to look at these and find one thing, one specific number, and if the data set if one of them has this thing, then we need to use the median. But if neither of them have this thing, we need to use the mean. That thing is the outlier. Okay, so when you look for an outlier, something abnormal, a super high number or a super low number, let's check. 30. Okay, done. That was easy. So if you look at everything else, it's 15, 14, it's 10, it's 12. It's around the 10 range. But 30 is 3 times that. Besides 10, the highest number besides 30 is 15. 30 is twice that. Okay, if a class average on a test is 50, but one kid made 100, that's not normal, right? The 100 should not be necessarily included in the mean to calculate the average for the whole class, the mean for the whole class, because that one's an outlier, right? So we need to recognize that this is an outlier. It's not normal. It's not common, right? There's not more than one of those. All right. So part A, you can put Mr. Parker's class has an outlier. So we should use the median. All right. And now part B, it says compare the two classes and figure out which one has the highest number, right? So the greatest number of digits memorized. So let's look at, so this is part B. So in Mr. Parker's class, in order, remember, to find the median, you gotta list everything in order. So that's 10, 12, 12, 14, 14, 14, 15, 30. And then for Smith's class, you can also see that. Yeah, when I get out of the way, you will be able to. So 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14. All right. So again, what you're going to want to do is cross out one at a time, the first, the last, and then kind of go towards the middle. Cross the first and the last one out. Cross the first and the last one. First and the last one. Leaves us with two numbers. You want to take those. 14 plus 14 divided by 2 is just going to be 14. So same process, cross it out. Cross 12 and 14. First and last. Leaves us with 13 and 13. Can't see that, so I'll bring that over there, and that answer is just going to be 13. Let's compare those. Mr. Parker's class, the median was 14. Mr. Smith's class, or Mrs. Smith's class, the median was 13. So Parker's class wins. They had the highest measure of center. They had the highest average using median. That's another one kind of quick at the end there, but that's the process for the problem. I guess for B, compare the two. That's all I had to do. That's the process to find median. It's not any more complicated than that. List them out in order, cross out first and last until you get to the middle, and that's the median. So let's look at example 4 real quick though. Remember, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box, send them to me in a remind message with the timestamp of the YouTube video, or if you're in example 4, or give me some detail. If you have any problems, put them in the chat box now, send them to me in email, Canvas message, remind message. You have a million ways to get in touch with me. Example 4, the data sets below show Kyla's Spanish quiz scores during the first and second semesters. Okay, so this is her quiz scores. So let's check first semester quiz scores, second semester quiz scores. I'm just going to go ahead and list them out here real quick. So the first semester, 75, 80, 60, 65, 70, 75, 70. In the second semester, 85. Getting better. Oh, that's just an 80. Okay. So now we gotta look at which best fits better, mean or median. Again, looking for that outlier. I don't think any of these numbers are an outlier. There's no zeros. Even 100 wouldn't be that crazy. Excuse me. Even 100 wouldn't be that crazy. So there's no super low numbers. So it looks like we're gonna use the mean this time, which is what you would probably think of as the average. Add them all up and divide. Okay, so for part B, it says use those to compare them. So what you would do to find the first, again, you would take all those numbers, you would take 75, you would take 80, 60, 55, 70, 75 plus 70. You would divide all those, that's crooked line, by the total number of scores, and I think she had 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so that would get you, I think that would average out to be 70.7 for the first semester. Just add them all up and divide them by the number you added. So the number of numbers, right? The number of numbers you added. We had 7 numbers that we added, so we divided it by 7. So let's take the second semester. Let's do 85 plus 80 plus 90 plus 70 plus 75 plus 80 plus 90. Let's divide all those by 7. Because there's still 7 numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Always good to double check. And that one's actually going to be 81.4. So her average, her quiz scores went up. Using mean, looks like they went up about 10.7 points, something like that. 10.7 points. So example 1 had us find both. Example 2 had us find both. Example 3 is an example of how to compare 2 sets of data using the median. Example 4 is how to compare 2 sets of data using the mean. When it says compare, we're just comparing them. We don't have to write out a sentence. I'm not looking for a sentence or a paragraph of the detailed comparison. This is in the English comparison class, like a compare and contrast kind of deal. We just need the numbers to show us that you know how to do both, find the median and the mean. If you look at the next couple pages, you can scroll, look at the next couple pages. Like 1 through 3, you just find both, but the numbers, not a lot of numbers, so it's nice there. You're probably going to want scratch paper. This might be kind of a pain in the butt to do all on the computer. So if you want to have scratch paper off the side where you're doing all your work, just put in the answers, just type somewhere, put in a text box, say, hey, I use scratch paper. For each set of data from 4 through 6, you just identify the outlier, which number is out of place, too high or too low. For 7 through 9, you're just looking, you don't actually have to find them, but you just have to figure out which one best fits, mean or median. Remember, if there's an outlier, you got to use the median. Okay, and 10 through 13, it actually tells you, it wants you to find, use the mean, use the median, use the mean, use the median. So where it says write incomplete sentences, let me kind of explain what the question wants you to do, and then we'll talk about it. It says the data shows the number of ads on number 10. The data shows the number of ads that were sold by the actors and stage crew members working on a school play. use the mean to compare the number of ads sold by the actors and stage crew. Write incomplete sentences. I just told you I'm not looking for a sentence. Okay, maybe if we were back in normal class, we would have a good discussion about all this, but it's kind of hard with this online learning stuff. Excuse me. It's kind of hard with all this online learning stuff. So it's for now, just figure out the mean, the median, whichever it asks you to do. And if you use complete sentences, I know you didn't watch the video. So the last 4 problems there, you don't need to use complete sentences necessarily. Okay, give me your best shot. If you have any questions, please do let me know. If you have any questions now, let me know. Give me questions about anything. What are we going to do moving forward? What's my grade look like? Any amount of contact is good. Just let me know if you need anything at all. And so I'll stop.